My parents attempted to label me unfit for my decision to withhold financial support from my sister. On the day my parents presented me with court papers asserting my mental unfitness, simply because I declined to finance my sister's new boutique, a harsh truth dawned on me. The bonds of family, while strong, are not without their boundaries. Hello, my name is Maddie. For years, I exerted every effort to embody the ideal daughter, yet when I ultimately stood my ground, they didn't merely abandon me. They attempted to wipe me from existence. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone dear to you stepped over a boundary you never imagined they would? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I hear you, and I understand that I share this experience with others. They gathered at my Thanksgiving dinner not for the turkey. They arrived, shrouded in secrecy, ready for the ambush. I ought to have been more aware. The moment they entered, beaming with smiles and exchanging hugs, I sensed the tension, a unique strain that only family can evoke. The atmosphere was devoid of any festive cheer, filled instead with a silent acknowledgement that the evening would not unfold in a joyful manner. The holiday has never held much appeal for me. It's not about the food. I can manage the turkey, the stuffing, and the mashed potatoes, but there's one thing that truly gets under my skin. The sweet aroma of pecan pie fills the air, a delightful blend of rich, buttery crust and the nutty goodness of pecans, all enveloped in a luscious, caramel-like filling. Each slice tells a story of warmth and comfort, inviting you to savor every bite. It's a classic dessert that evokes memories of gatherings and celebrations, a true testament to the joy of sharing delicious moments with loved ones. And yet, each year, my mother, Eleanor, is unwavering in her commitment to bake it, as though it were a cherished tradition that must endure. It has always puzzled me why she is so captivated by it. Perhaps this is her method of demonstrating that she can excel in all roles, as a mother, a homemaker, and a perfectionist. She has consistently ensured that I understood her dominance over every aspect, including the Thanksgiving dinner. That year, the aroma of the pie blending with the sights and sounds of the Macy's parade on TV failed to capture my attention. After much anticipation, the moment finally arrived when my parents decided to reveal their news to me. As they nestled into their seats at the quaint table in my humble Charlotte apartment, my sister, Samantha, initiated the dialogue as she always did, with a light remark about her most recent endeavor. She possessed a knack for introducing the most awkward subjects with a casual demeanor, almost as if she were attempting to provoke a response from me. Samantha swirled her wine glass, a casual gesture that belied the weight of her words. "I'm thinking about opening an eco-boutique downtown," she announced, as if sharing the weather rather than a life-changing plan. "There's this vibe that's all about being in the moment, embracing the natural, and celebrating the latest in style. It resonates beautifully with the current moment." The instant her words escaped her lips, I sensed the weight of my parents' gaze upon me. Samantha's unexpected leap into the business world was not as impulsive as she portrayed it to be. I could sense the wheels spinning in my mom's mind, the fleeting glance she cast at Thomas, her method of readying him for what lay ahead. I maintained a neutral stance in my response. "That sounds delightful." Yet, I was aware of what lay ahead. "You know, Maddie," Eleanor began, her voice laced with that well-known sweetness that often concealed deeper intentions. "Assisting your sister would present a wonderful chance for both of you. Isn't it true that loyalty to family holds great significance?" She cast a glance at Thomas, who responded with a nod of affirmation. Thomas, my dad, reclined in his chair, arms folded, as though this was merely another discussion they had scheduled for the evening. He remarked with a nonchalant air, "It's merely a small investment. Nothing particularly grand. It revolves around being there for your loved ones." Samantha had turned her gaze away from me entirely. Her gaze was fixed on the screen of her phone, her fingers moving rhythmically as she scrolled without thought. Yet, I caught the subtle smirk on her face, the familiar expression she donned whenever she sensed she had me trapped, able to sway me without uttering a single word. My heart plummeted. The familiar tug was undeniable, accompanied by guilt, pressure, and the weight of expectation. "I can't," I said, the words lingering in the atmosphere like a dense mist. As the last echoes faded away, an unsettling stillness enveloped the room. Uncertainty lingered in the air as I spoke, and the instant the words left my lips, it was as if the very walls around me tightened their grip. Samantha's smirk vanished, and for the first time, she truly raised her gaze. Yet, rather than the familiar warmth one might anticipate from family, her expression was cold, tinged with disappointment, almost. Eleanor's smile faltered as she rested her hands on the table, leaning in closer. "You'll come to wish you hadn't been so self-centered, Maddie." Her words lingered in the air, cutting deeper than any blade resting on the table. It was more than a mere threat, it carried the weight of finality, and for an instant, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Perhaps I was acting out of self-interest. Perhaps I ought to have offered my assistance, just this once. Yet, I stood firm. I observed Eleanor as she collected her belongings, her actions deliberate and measured. Thomas mirrored the action, and in mere moments, they vanished, leaving the remnants behind as a stark reminder of the events that had just unfolded. In the stillness of my apartment, the distant sounds of the Macy's parade echoed softly, leaving me enveloped in a sense of numbness. By now, I ought to be accustomed to the unending expectations, the perpetual struggle between familial loyalty and my personal boundaries. I tossed the cold turkey into the trash, indifferent to the meal, the tradition, or the people who had just left. As I prepared to tidy up, my phone vibrated on the counter. A message arrived from Eleanor. In every twist and turn, family discovers a path forward. The gravity of her words enveloped me as I gazed at the screen, pondering their significance. Would I look back and wish I had said no? Would they discover a method to instill regret within me, to ensure I face the consequences of my own selfishness? Unbeknownst to me, there was one undeniable truth. The story was far from finished, not even close. Betrayal, when it arrives, often does so in the most unexpected forms, even adorned with the insignia of authority. Initially, it felt like just another hurried December morning. Charlotte was enveloped in a biting chill, the sort that sliced through your coat and left you longing for the comfort of home, nestled with a book and a steaming cup of coffee. As I navigated the imposing glass doors of the firm, my arms burdened with client files, I endeavored to cast aside the persistent weight that had settled on my chest since Thanksgiving. My job had consistently served as my sanctuary. The figures spoke the truth. Spreadsheets remained steadfast, free from the burdens of guilt trips. Yet today, even the rhythmic tapping of keyboards and the sharp click of polished shoes on tile failed to bring me any sense of calm. The air was filled with the spirit of Christmas, as decorations adorned every corner. Plastic holly adorned the front desk, while a weathered Santa figurine stood watch over the coffee machine. A holiday playlist played softly in the background. Bing Crosby's voice floated through the air, serenading about the joys of being home for Christmas, and I found myself stifling a laugh at the stark contrast of the moment. Home was not a destination you revisited. At times, it was the very location you sought to escape. As I diligently worked on my quarterly report, a man clad in a gray suit approached, tapping his clipboard against the wall of my cubicle. "Madeline Carter," he inquired, his voice soft yet resonant. I nodded, a tightness gripping my stomach. "You've been served," he declared, thrusting a hefty envelope into my hands before vanishing as swiftly as he had materialized. For a fleeting moment, my gaze was fixed upon it. My name, elegantly inscribed across the front, the court seal prominently displayed in the top corner. A few of my coworkers nearby tried not to look but failed miserably, their curiosity prickling the air like static. I rose to my feet, the papers quivering ever so slightly in my grasp, and made my way to the break room as if I were on a predetermined path. Ryan had already arrived, filling his cup with a second or perhaps a third serving of coffee. "Hey," he said, glancing upward. His smile wavered as his gaze met mine. "Are you all right?" I shook my head, a heavy silence enveloping me, rendering me speechless. I settled into the corner booth, my fingers shaking as I ripped open the envelope. Guardianship. The word struck me with the force of a sudden blow. My parents sought legal authority over my life, asserting that I was mentally unfit and unable to handle my own affairs. The documents unfolded in a cold, clinical language of the law. Whispers of unpredictable actions, questionable monetary choices, and fluctuating emotions linger in the air. Every word was a fabrication, every moment a deceit. The room swirled gently around me. With my hands firmly clutching the table edge, I sought stability, concentrating on the sleek surface of the laminate beneath my fingers. In the distance, Bing's voice floated through the air, weaving tales of snow and mistletoe. Ryan took a seat opposite me, placing his coffee down gently. "Speak to me, Maddie. What's happening?" I slid the papers across the table in his direction. He scanned the pages with urgency, a shadow crossing his gaze. "This is insane," he said, his voice strained. "You are truly one of the most composed individuals I have encountered." A faint, empty laugh escaped my lips. "That's not what they believe." The familiar weight of guilt emerged once more, unexpected and unwelcome. I recalled the moment I found myself in the financial aid office during my sophomore year of college, transferring a portion of my tuition funds to Samantha, who had pleaded for assistance with her outstanding fees. She always kept the money to herself. Even more troubling, when I brought it up later, she broke down in tears and accused me of being selfish to Mom. I found myself offering an apology. That had been the rhythm of my existence. Samantha faltered. I captured her. Samantha wove a tale of deception. I documented. Samantha shattered the delicate balance of her surroundings. I completed the payment. And now they were casting shadows on my stability. I ought to have anticipated it, I murmured. Ryan leaned in, his curiosity piqued. "This is not on you." The break room seemed cramped. The fluorescent lights were uncomfortably bright. I pushed the papers into the envelope and rose to my feet. "It is imperative that I find a way to escape this place." "Take the rest of the day," Ryan said without hesitation. "I will take your place." I nodded, a sense of gratitude washing over me, though my mind struggled to fully grasp the moment. As I snatched my coat, the thought of clocking out flickered in my mind, but the icy wind outside beckoned me, urging me to step into its embrace. As I stepped into my apartment, a peculiar sensation washed over me. It seemed as though the space had contracted during my time away. The modest Christmas tree I had placed in the corner appeared to taunt me, its shimmering lights unaware of the tempest raging within my heart. I let the envelope slip from my fingers, landing softly on the coffee table, and sank into the couch, my gaze fixed upon it. I went through the documents again and again. By the third time, the words melded into one another, and I found myself fighting back tears. They had no intention of offering me assistance. They sought to obliterate my existence. The awareness seeped into my very being, chilling and weighty. It was not driven by worry. It transcended the notion of love. It revolved around power, around wealth, around ensuring I remained in the place they deemed appropriate, beneath their influence, muted, obedient. In the distance, the familiar strains of the Christmas playlist cycled to yet another tune. The juxtaposition of joy to the world echoing around me while my own reality shattered was not lost on me. I remained there throughout the night, nestled on the couch with a blanket draped over my shoulders as if it were a protective shield, the envelope resting open on the table like an unhealed scar. As the clock struck 4 and the early light began to creep over the horizon, I found myself at a crossroads, ready to make a choice. They imparted the lessons of endurance against them. I will endure this challenge. At times, the most profound support emerges from the very family they sought to diminish. It was Ryan who discovered her. After a night filled with tossing and turning, poring over faded photo albums and legal papers until my eyes felt heavy, I picked up the phone to call him as the first light of dawn broke. Without uttering a word, he approached with coffee in hand, his expression conveying a silent promise that I wouldn't face this challenge by myself. On the living room floor, we gathered, laptops aglow, as the delicate twinkle of Christmas lights from my small tree filled the space with a gentle, wavering light. "Are you certain about this?" As Ryan scrolled through the online listings, a sense of curiosity washed over him. I confessed my uncertainty, yet I knew I couldn't face them by myself. And what of Maggie? Perhaps she is the sole individual who truly comprehends. Maggie Reeves, the specter of the family lore. In my childhood, Maggie existed as a hushed cautionary tale. Eleanor would hiss, warning me not to end up like her whenever I dared to question a rule or probe too deeply with my uncomfortable inquiries. She was the aunt who had tangled the threads of their lives, though the details of her missteps remained shrouded in silence. Yet, a single thought lingered in my mind. At the age of 8, I received a genuine birthday card from Maggie. Not the usual pre-signed variety, but one adorned with a handwritten message that affirmed my intelligence and courage, encouraging me to pursue my dreams. Eleanor discarded it before I could complete my reading. In that moment, I found myself pondering the other truths that Maggie may have attempted to convey to me. With a gentle tap, Ryan engaged with his screen. Maggie Reeves, the founder, leads a family law practice in Uptown Charlotte, characterized by its intimate and personalized approach. He cast a fleeting look in my direction. "Are you prepared?" "No," I said with sincerity, reaching for my coat, "but let's proceed regardless." The rain began to fall as we arrived at the slender brick structure nestled between a dental practice and a quaint second-hand bookstore. The streets shimmered beneath the overcast sky, with puddles dancing in response to each car that drove by. I stared up at the faded brass plaque on the door, Reeves and Associates, Family Law and Estate Planning. My hand hovered at the door. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. Throughout my life, I had been led to believe that seeking assistance, extending a hand, was a sign of frailty. Yet another voice, softer yet more resolute, declared, "This is survival." With a gentle nudge, I swung the door wide open. Within the confines of the room, the atmosphere was infused with the scent of aged tomes, rich leather, and an elusive warmth that lingered in the air, defying easy description. Perhaps a sense of solace. The receptionist, a woman roughly my age with curly hair and keen eyes, glanced up from her screen. "How may I assist you today?" I searched for Maggie Reeves, my voice barely above a whisper. "There is no appointment scheduled for me." The woman observed me with an intensity that lingered just a beat too long. She reached for the phone, whispered a few words, and motioned towards a well-loved leather couch positioned against the wall. "Kindly remain here for a moment." I found myself seated, fingers entwined in my lap, gazing intently at the framed photographs that adorned the walls. Families beaming with a hint of discomfort at weddings, reunions, adoptions, capturing fleeting moments of hope forever. Moments later, a door slowly opened down the hall. "Is that you, Maddie?" The voice resonated with a depth I hadn't recalled, etched with the passage of time, yet undeniably recognizable. I gazed upwards. Maggie stood resolutely in a navy pantsuit, her silver hair neatly secured in a pragmatic bun. Her eyes were strikingly familiar, mirroring the intensity one occasionally glimpsed in my own reflection, capable of unraveling deceit to its very core. Her lips remained uncurled. She maintained a neutral expression. With a gentle push, she widened the doorway. "Step inside." I trailed behind her into a cramped, disordered office, where the air was thick with the scents of leather, ink, and an essence that resonated with authenticity. She gestured for me to take a seat, then settled into the chair behind the desk, her gaze fixed on me as if she were committing every scar I bore to memory. "I apologize for arriving in this manner," I started, my voice trembling more than I intended. Maggie gestured with a wave of her hand. "If you find yourself in this place, it signifies that something is amiss, and if it pertains to Eleanor, the situation is likely more dire than you can imagine." That moment nearly shattered me, listening to someone articulate it without a hint of judgment or skepticism. I inhaled deeply, retrieving the wrinkled court documents from my bag and placing them between us as if they were a gesture of reconciliation. Maggie immersed herself in the text, her gaze sharpening with each word she absorbed. As she reached the end, her knuckles had turned pale from the intensity with which she clutched the pages. "Conservatorship," she declared, her voice a low, simmering fury. "Are they attempting to label you as incapable?" I nodded, resolute in my decision not to provide Samantha with funds for her new boutique. Maggie reclined, her arms crossed with a sense of contemplation. A familiar tale, yet it unfolds in a new era. Her eyes drifted to a picture frame resting on her desk, containing an aged black and white photograph of an unfamiliar woman, standing with pride beside a crumbling farmhouse. Maggie spoke softly, sharing, "They did the same thing to me." Upon the passing of our father, I found myself in a fierce struggle with Eleanor and Thomas regarding the will. I sought a fair division, while they craved dominance, labeling me as unpredictable, defiant, and a threat. I took a deep breath. I was unaware. "Certainly not," she replied, her smile devoid of humor. "They wiped me from existence. It's more straightforward that way." In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped us both. As the rain fell, it created a rhythmic symphony against the window, each drop telling a story of its own. Then Maggie leaned in closer, her gaze intense and unwavering as it locked onto mine. "If we engage," she declared, her tone a blend of firmness and elegance, "we engage with strategy. And we never falter." My throat tightened, constricting around the words I couldn't voice. I nodded once, with determination. She reclined, observing me intently. "Can you provide evidence?" With a slight quiver, I delved into my bag once more, retrieving the small flash drive I had carefully stowed away in the inner pocket just the night before. I placed it on the desk that lay between us. "Years of it," I declared. "Messages, notifications, recordings, financial documents, all the evidence they believed I wouldn't dare to hold on to." Maggie's eyes sparkled, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of what seemed to be pride dancing across her features. With a delicate touch, she extended her hand and wrapped her fingers around the flash drive. "Good," she said, "very good." Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside that small office, I felt something shift. After what felt like an eternity, I found myself in the presence of others, no longer isolated in my solitude. And in that moment, I understood, was the very aspect they had misjudged the deepest. I had transformed from the quiet little girl they once thought they could trap in silence. With Maggie by my side, I was determined to make my voice heard. In conflict, the initial move isn't aggression. It's assembling your collection of tools. As the snow began to blanket the ground, we made the pivotal choice to stand our ground. Not the heavy, tail-like variety, but delicate, restless flakes that murmured against the windows of Maggie's office, hardly clinging to the sidewalks. The world beyond appeared shrouded in a soft blur, an ethereal quality enveloping it, as if we were ensconced within a snow globe, given a vigorous shake that left reality slightly askew. The air inside was heavy with the rich aroma of robust coffee mingling with the scent of aged paper. Documents lay scattered across every available surface, on desks, chairs, and even the floor, creating a chaotic tapestry of disarray. Post-it notes danced in the breeze from the heater, small yellow banners signaling conflicts yet to be resolved. I sat cross-legged on the rug, my laptop teetering on my knees, as Maggie moved restlessly behind her desk, rifling through papers with the fervor of a commander strategizing for battle. "One must adopt their perspective," she remarked. "When they claim you lack stability, what proof do they present? What is the method for its destruction?" The words struck a chord within me, not due to their severity, but because they resonated with undeniable truth. Memories flooded my mind of the countless occasions I had tucked away my report cards, gripped by the fear that Eleanor would discover AB+ and label me a failure, unstable, a disappointment. It had always been simpler to act as if everything was flawless, yet that facade had not rescued me. With a steadying breath, I opened yet another folder. Ryan arrived shortly thereafter, his arms laden with takeout containers and an expression that conveyed his intention to stay for a while. He placed the food on the side table and reached for his laptop, positioning it beside mine. "Very well," he remarked, popping his knuckles with a deliberate motion. "Let's explore further." For hours, we toiled in quietude, the stillness punctuated only by the rare, low curse that escaped our lips whenever one of us stumbled upon yet another incriminating clue. Images of messages where Eleanor undermined me, correspondence where Samantha suggested I was indebted for all the family's support, financial documents revealing unusual transactions from my parents' accounts directly into those managed by Samantha. At a certain moment, Ryan halted, narrowing his eyes at the glow of his screen. "Hey Maddie," he said, his voice laced with caution, "you need to see this." I shifted closer, my eyes narrowing as I examined the email he had opened. It was a moment etched in time, Christmas 2020, a period marked by the arrival of my year-end bonus at work. Subject: Family Priorities from Eleanor Carter. To Madeline Carter, known as Maddie. Every one of us endures hardships for those we hold dear. Consider using your bonus to assist Samantha in managing her debts. Ultimately, without family, who are we really? The words twisted within me, slithering like a serpent. I recalled that Christmas vividly, the way Eleanor beamed at me across the dinner table, radiating warmth and pride. How naive I had felt believing, if only for an instant, that I was truly enough. Ryan reclined in his chair, a moment of contemplation washing over him. Their plans had been in the making for quite some time now. I nodded, forcing down the tightness that threatened to choke me. Success was never truly desired for me by them. All they desired was for me to achieve enough to rescue Samantha. Maggie remained silent. She continued to read, her expression unyielding and resolute. As the clock struck midnight, we meticulously arranged everything into neat folders. In the shadows of the digital realm, a tale unfolds, one of financial exploitation and the subtle art of emotional coercion. Each piece of evidence tells a story, revealing the intricate web of deceit and control that ensnares its victims. Every file served as a brick in the fortress we were constructing to safeguard me. Maggie crafted a counter-motion against the conservatorship, her fingers flying over the keyboard with the intense focus of someone who had been readying for this battle for as long as she could remember. "Do they claim you lack stability?" She replied, "Fine. We present to the court the truth of your nature, you are a source of inconvenience." The snow outside deepened, dancing beneath the streetlights in a slow, mesmerizing whirl. I observed it for a brief moment, a sense of unusual tranquility washing over me. Perhaps this was the essence of battlefields prior to the first shot, an unusual, nearly sacred silence enveloping the air. In that moment, Maggie became utterly still. In her hands, she clutched a file that was unfamiliar to me, likely something she had retrieved from the court records that Eleanor had provided. With a deliberate motion, she unfurled it upon the desk. "What is this?" I inquired, rising to my feet and making my way over. It was the document that marked the beginning of my existence. However, it's not quite that simple. The name recorded for my mother was accurate. Eleanor Carter, but the father's name. It wasn't Thomas Carter. A different name entirely, hastily crossed out and replaced with a softer hue of ink. Maggie's finger danced lightly along the edge. "This is more than a simple mistake," she asserted. "This was modified without authorization." I gazed at the document, my heart racing so fiercely that it overshadowed the soft hum of the heater. "What is the significance of this?" "It signifies," Maggie articulated with deliberation, "that if we can establish you are not the biological daughter of Thomas Carter, they possess no legal claim to your financial assets." "None." Ryan let out a soft whistle. "That transforms the entire landscape." Maggie gently closed the file, her movements deliberate and filled with a sense of significance. "They didn't merely attempt to erase you," she said, her voice resonating with a somber finality. "They sought to possess you." The space felt constricting, the walls inching nearer, while the snow outside swirled with increasing urgency. Yet within, for the first time in what felt like ages, a part of me rose with newfound strength. Should their empire have been constructed on deceit, I stood prepared to dismantle it. Piece by pilfered piece. The chambers of justice do not mend the scars of the soul. They simply reveal them. The morning air cut sharply, piercing through even the thickest wool. I tightened my scarf around my neck as we ascended the courthouse steps, the sound of my boots echoing sharply against the smooth concrete. The sky hung heavy and gray above, seemingly intent on pushing us down into the earth below. Within the walls of the Mecklenburg County Courthouse, the air was thick with the aroma of low-quality coffee, the mustiness of paper dust, and an underlying metallic hint that spoke of anxious anticipation. It was a realm of conflict devoid of blades. Just paper and truth. At times, deceit cuts with a similar ruthlessness. Maggie advanced with intention, her heels creating a steady cadence as she traversed the hallway. I trailed behind her, making an effort to dismiss the way my hands quivered, even with the gloves on. Ryan and Chloe followed closely, their silent, unwavering presence grounding me in the here and now. As we stepped into the courtroom, they were already present. Eleanor donned a striking red coat that boldly proclaimed her defiance. Thomas, clad in gray, shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flitting away from mine. Samantha reclined as if she were enjoying a leisurely brunch, oblivious to the gravity of the legal proceedings that could alter the course of our lives forever. I took my place at the defendant's table, the cool, solid wood grounding me as my palms rested upon it. Maggie drew nearer. "Maintain your composure. Let them weave their own demise," she whispered. I gave a single nod. The judge made her entrance, a woman whose piercing gaze and seldom smiling lips commanded attention. We all rose to our feet, then took our seats at her beckoning. First to rise was their lawyer, a charismatic figure known as Gregory Kane. "Your Honor," he began, his voice dripping with sweetness. "This is not a criticism of Miss Carter. It is a gesture of affection. Her family is profoundly worried about her health and happiness." I sank my teeth into the tender flesh of my cheek, the metallic tang of blood flooding my mouth. Gregory summoned Eleanor to take the stand. She glided with an ethereal grace, embodying a blend of nurturing worry and profound sorrow. "We observed transformations," she remarked, her voice quivering with a delicate artistry. "Isolated demeanor, monetary recklessness, intense emotional eruptions." I watched her hands tightly grip the Bible as she took her oath. They remained utterly still. With a heavy heart, she shared the moments that weighed on her, the time I neglected to return her call amidst a family emergency, my decision not to co-sign a loan for Samantha, and my absence from Thanksgiving dinner, all while overlooking the fact that they had pressured me for financial help. Every tale was a shard of reality contorted into a weapon poised to pierce my soul. Thomas trailed behind, muttering softly about his worries regarding my delicate emotional state. Samantha let out a theatrical sigh, casting me in the light of bitterness, jealousy, and instability. I kept my face still, my hands folded in my lap. When Gregory rested their case, Maggie rose, calm as a gathering storm. She called Chloe to the stand. Chloe strode forward, her posture proud and her chin held high. Under oath, her words flowed with clarity and unwavering resolve. She recounted her 2 years of collaboration with Samantha Carter. She never missed an opportunity to boast about how Maddie settled her debts. As Maddie came to a halt, Samantha declared her intention to seek an alternative path to secure the funds. Gregory raised an objection, asserting that it was hearsay. Denied. Chloe pressed on, her voice cutting through the tension in the courtroom. I overheard Eleanor Carter say to Samantha, "Maddie owes us, considering all we've given up." The judge's eyebrows furrowed in concentration. With a subtle shift, she leaned in, and then Maggie revealed the records. Documents revealing Eleanor and Thomas moving money into Samantha's account, messages where Eleanor suggested I was being overly dramatic for not surrendering my bonuses, emails urging me to co-sign loans I had never even consented to talk about. Bit by bit, the meticulous illusion they crafted fell apart. At last, Maggie summoned me to the stand. The courtroom faded into a haze as I rose, each nerve in my body urging me to flee. Memory surged as I found myself back in high school, paralyzed in the moment of a speech competition, the sting of Eleanor's words echoing in my mind. "My voice," she said, "was too dramatic and utterly embarrassing." Yet, in this moment, I found my balance. This time, my voice held steady. "I am not unstable," I declared. "For more than 10 years, I have maintained a consistent position in my career. I oversee my financial matters. I take full responsibility for my decisions." I halted, locking gazes with the judge. "What I have not managed," I said, my voice low yet unmistakable, "is the relentless gaslighting, manipulation, and financial pressure exerted by my family. Their focus lies not in my welfare, but in maintaining their grip on my existence." A hush lingered, dense and electric. Maggie stepped forward to the bench, presenting her last piece of evidence, the modified birth certificate and the trust documents. Your Honor, she stated, delicately arranging the documents in front of the judge, we possess evidence indicating that Maddie Carter's birth record was unlawfully altered to tie her financially to the Carter family trust, a trust to which she had no legitimate claim, yet it was wielded as a tool of manipulation against her for many years. The judge's expression grew stern. With a furrowed brow, she turned the pages of the documents, her lips forming a tight line. The court has determined that there is adequate reason to initiate an independent inquiry into the financial affairs of the Carter family, she declared, with immediate effect. I released a breath, trembling slightly. The noise resonated with a force that eclipsed the echo of the gavel striking down. The court has temporarily paused its proceedings. The corridor beyond was a whirlwind of jackets and heated murmurs. I had just reached the midpoint to the exit when Eleanor's hand suddenly gripped my wrist. You'll come to regret crossing blood, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. I pivoted gradually, gently loosening her grip from my coat with a measured serenity. I am no longer yours to drain, I declared. She recoiled like I'd slapped her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. Freedom is not an explosion of colors in the sky. It's akin to being frozen in time, only to discover that the tempest has finally moved on. The courthouse had an air of freshness that day, as if a window had been opened to invite the gentle breath of spring inside. Outside, cherry blossoms were just starting to open along the sidewalks, small splashes of pink contrasting with the persistent gray of the stone buildings. I found myself before the judge's bench, my hands calm and poised at my sides. Maggie stood beside me, composed and unwavering. Ryan lingered in the gallery, feigning indifference to the swell of pride within him. The judge delivered the final ruling with a voice sharp and resolute. The petition for conservatorship is officially dismissed with prejudice. Eleanor and Samantha Carter face financial sanctions due to their misconduct. Madeline Carter, the respondent, holds the option to initiate her own legal proceedings should she decide to do so. There was a moment of stillness. A fleeting look in my direction. Upon the request presented, the court duly grants the petition for a legal name change. Madeline Carter will now take on the name Madeline Reeves. I remained still for a moment. I allowed the words to permeate my being, warming me like the gentle rays of sunlight following a harsh, unforgiving winter. Maggie gave me a soft nudge. I moved ahead, my hand steady as I signed the documents, and sensed the last link shatter. Not with fury, but with tranquility. Reeves. A name I selected. A name forged not through duty or shame or heritage, but from the steadfast spirit of an individual who would not fade away. As we stepped out of the courtroom, I noticed Eleanor and Samantha lingering nearby, their expressions a mystery. Samantha toyed with the strap of a purse that was clearly beyond her means, a silent acknowledgement that someone else had likely covered the cost. Eleanor's lips were pressed together in a tense, resentful line. For a fleeting instant, Eleanor's gaze locked onto mine. With a tentative step, uncertainty danced in her expression. I averted my gaze. Not with rage. Not even with sorrow. Simply recognizing that not every scar requires revisiting. The city thrummed with life, each corner alive with the promise of a fresh season. Stalls adorned with fresh flowers were being arranged by the vendors. A street performer filled the air with a lively melody from a worn saxophone. In the vicinity, a laugh echoed softly. A sound so delicate, it filled my chest with a sweet ache that felt utterly beautiful. Maggie placed her hand firmly on my shoulder. It has a unique quality, doesn't it? I nodded, inhaling air that seemed to carry a distinct clarity, a refreshing crispness. Ryan approached with a casual ease, cradling 2 steaming coffees nestled within a pastry bag. So, when can we expect the memoir to be released? He playfully taunted. A chuckle escaped me. A genuine chuckle. The kind that surged forth uninvited. Just a moment, I requested. I'm in the process of familiarizing myself with the act of writing my name. Maggie smiled with delight. Begin with that. What comes next will unfold naturally. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, I found myself seated cross-legged on the floor of my new apartment. It was more compact than the previous one, yet it felt less burdensome. More spacious. The space was free from the burden of heavy drapes or dusty heirlooms, allowing it to breathe and flourish. Empty shelves stand in anticipation, eager for the stories they will soon hold. Walls poised in anticipation for images that carried significance. I carefully examined a last box from my past. Trophies from high school, awarded in ceremonies that no one bothered to attend. Cards inscribed with a sense of duty and affection. A snapshot captures my 10-year-old self, standing rigidly beside Eleanor during a school play that has faded from memory. One by one, I gathered them into a pile for donation. Not with resentment. Not with sorrow. Simply let go. Some memories were treasures, nestled deep within me now. Not in objects. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, its warm golden rays spilled over the wooden floor, and I carefully placed one final item into my bag. A delicate paper crane, meticulously folded long ago on a solitary summer camp afternoon, carries with it the whispers of time and memory. I took it down to the small creek that flowed behind my building. The water murmured gently as it danced over the polished stones. Kneeling at the edge, I gently set the crane upon the surface. For a fleeting instant, it hovered in the air. Light as air and confident. Then the current embraced it, guiding it softly downstream. Unbroken. Transformed into a fresh creation. I rose to my feet, wiping my hands against my jeans. The city lights sprang to life around me, and for the first time, they felt like stars within my grasp. They seemed to beckon. As I entered the vibrant, lively street, the energy around me was palpable. Free from the chains of a history that failed to embrace me as I deserved. I found myself unbound. Unknown. And precisely the person I decided to become. Madeline Reeves. It was a day etched in my memory, the moment my own parents presented me with court papers, asserting that I was mentally unfit. It all stemmed from my decision not to support my sister's new boutique, leading me to a harsh realization. The bonds of family, while strong, can be tested and have their boundaries. Hello, my name is Maddie. For years, I contorted myself in every way imaginable to fulfill the role of the perfect daughter. Yet, when I ultimately stood my ground and said no, they did not merely walk away from me. They attempted to wipe me from existence. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone dear to you stepped over a boundary you never imagined they would? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I hear the whispers, and I understand I'm part of something greater.